Hello, Cohasset, and welcome to another edition of Our Town. I'm Mark DeGiacomo, and with me is Pat Martin and Karen Quigley. Hi, Karen.
Hey.
Welcome.
Thank you.
This is the first of our candidate interviews for all five folks who are running for selectmen and the two who are running for school committee. Tonight, we'll start out with Pat.
All right, Karen. So I think most people in town know you. You were a member of the Board of Selectmen up until last year, a year ago, right?
2 years.
You ran and you were defeated.
Correct.
And so now you're looking to get back on the board. Why? Why are you running, Karen?
Well, because I really care about Cohasset, I really do. And even though I haven't been in office, I've been paying attention to what's going on. And like many people in town, I've been disappointed and dismayed at the direction town government's been going. I think that there's been a lot of unnecessary turmoil that's led to unnecessary litigation that's very costly to the town. There appears to be a lack of respect for citizens, for our town employees, for town meeting vote, for the law itself. And I don't believe, I don't feel in my heart that that's really the Cohasset way. It's a beautiful town with great people and lots of resources. And my sole reason for running is just to be a part of a solution to bring Cohasset back on a positive path.
Karen, you mentioned you served one term as on the Board of Selectmen, but you've also served in several other capacities in the town. Tell us about some of those.
Well, I entered town government through the environmental door because that's, primarily I'm an environmentalist. I sat on the Water Resource Protection Committee. I sat on the Open Space and Recreation Committee. I was chair of the Harbor Health Committee. And locally, I sit on the board of the Cohasset Conservation Trust.
Now, you mentioned the reasons for running and some of the problems that you've seen. Be specific. Give us the top 2 or 3 issues that you've seen in town that most trouble you.
I believe that we've seen over the past several years the unintended consequences, the ramifications of having inexperienced managers and leaders. And I believe that terminations of employees have been handled in such a way that they have resulted in litigation and complaints being filed against the town. Employee morale is at the lowest that it's ever been. People are fearful for their jobs. In watching the meetings and reading and talking with people, the general consensus is that things are being done from the top down with very little consensus building. And I believe, I always have, and as a selectman, I worked very hard to reach out and build relationships with the different committees, with advisory and capital budget, any of the other committees that were pertinent to issues that we were discussing. I believe that things can be done in a professional way, where you present something, you get all the stakeholders together, you identify obstacles, you eliminate the obstacles, and then you move forward in a positive way, in things that everybody can buy into, and rather than having things dictated to them.
So when you talk about top down, are you talking about both the Office of the Acting Town Manager and the Board of Selectmen?
Yes.
Both?
Yeah, I believe that I believe that the Board of Selectmen has given the acting town manager almost their full support in all the actions that have happened up until now. Recently, there seems to be some movement on the board, some realization that maybe things should be looked at a little more carefully, and that's very heartening, I believe.
Going back to some specifics, the Mike Coughlin situation, how would you have handled that whole Mike Coughlin situation if you had been on the board at the time?
First of all, I would have given him, as I did with Steve Lombard, who was the interim town manager when I was chair of the Board of Selectmen. Cohasset is a very interesting town, and we have a lot of very interesting people and issues. And so what I did was to provide Steve with the local knowledge to help him to avoid pitfalls and to understand the issues and why they may seem to be not important, but they really were very important. And I don't believe that the Board of Selectmen gave that to Mr. Coughlin. Well, I don't know whether they were right or they were wrong, and that's going to be resolved in a court of law, as I understand now. But I think that that was totally unnecessary. Again, in a professional way with an experienced manager, you would sit down with an individual and you would say, things aren't working out. They're not working out for us, they're not working out for you. Let's talk about your contract. Can we buy you out? We'll give you a good reference. We're going to put out an RFP. You should start looking for something else.
So do you think if you were in that spot at that time that you would have been able to work with Mike Coughlin based on what we saw in his tenure?
I would have tried very hard to work with him. I wasn't there. I don't know what transpired in the dealings that I had with him. I was called out of my retirement by individuals on town government and told that he was destroying the town, and what could I do about it? And I went down and I talked to him, and I didn't agree with everything that he was doing, and he didn't agree with everything I said, but we were able to have good conversations. So I would like to think that I was only one person on a board, but I might have been able to make a difference.
And so you think that the board just didn't give him enough time, didn't give him enough support coming in, and that was the first mistake, or among the first mistakes?
I'm really trying to be very positive and looking
You're doing a
towards
good job.
what is going forward. I think that evidenced by the meetings where we had members of other town boards sitting in the front row, literally taking over Board of Selectmen's meetings, behaving in a manner that I would deem unacceptable for a 3-year-old. And the Board of Selectmen sitting there and allowing it to go on, berating the town manager. I thought that was inappropriate, unprofessional, and certainly not the way that I want my town government run. I don't think we'll ever really know whether Mike Coughlin would have been a good town manager or not, because he really wasn't given the chance.
Well, we just heard from, we just filmed a show with Mike Milanowski about the budget and so forth. He talks about that difficulties and hurt feelings and ruffled feathers come with change, and that Cohasset needed change. Given that, I mean, if you look back, there were some issues going on before this kind of schism started, where the budget process in the town was full of a lot of issues in accounting and so forth. I mean, is it growing pains, you think, or is it personalities?
Change is difficult, change is hard, but professional experience management does not allow it to get to the level that it has gotten to right now. As I was speaking to before, there is a way to introduce what I deem to be really a sweeping change in the organization of our town government. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. What I object to is the way that it's being done and the way people are being treated. I don't understand how you can be, I think today is the drop dead day for the agenda. There are so many unanswered questions regarding the budget, the positions, the job descriptions. There are no job descriptions. How many new positions have been established? How many positions have been rolled into new positions? And these positions, these little blocks that are on these PowerPoint presentations, these are people that have worked for our town for a long time. And if changes need to be made, they need to be made in a way where the employees, where the boards, we don't even know whether water, sewer, planning, who else would be involved in this? The assessors. We don't know where do they stand on all this. This is a change that's going to affect them too. So is it an issue that should be discussed? Yes it is. But the way it is being handled just speaks to the inexperience, the lack of management experience, and the lack of personnel experience of dealing with people and being able to build that consensus and bring along all the stakeholders and the employees in such a way that everybody can understand why this is necessary, why it's a good thing for the town. If it is, I'm not advocating for it, but I'm just saying that it is not necessarily what is being done, but the way that it is being done, the process, the procedure. It's just not there.
And you said that the morale among town employees you think is kind of at an all-time low.
I believe that it is extremely low. Most people are fearful. A lot of the people that are involved in this proposed change are very fearful of their jobs.
Do you not feel reassured? I mean, Mike sat on our show and said that people were just getting retitled, so a little bit moved into different, more efficient groupings of departments and so forth, but nobody was going to lose a cut in pay or lose their job. Is that not
I
what you
think that there have been instances to show that perhaps that isn't entirely the case. But whether it is or it isn't, the fact of the matter is the employees have not been convinced of that. Their fears have not been addressed. The unions are not on board. How do you move forward with a plan without taking all the proper steps to bring it to the people at town meeting and say, this is a good thing, this is why it's a good thing, this is why we want you to vote for it, instead of just saying, this is what we think is the best thing, and whether the employees and the unions and anybody else agrees with us, this is what we're going to present to you.
Do you think the town financially is on a better footing now than it was a couple years ago?
It would be hard to be on worse footing.
Why are we on a better footing?
Because the measures that were recommended in the Mellitson and Heath audit, which, by the way, only took place because I'm such a pain in the whatever, and was the sole voice saying we have to have this forensic audit. We have to know what happened and why it happened, and we have to be able to reassure the people. So the audit identified things and made recommendations, and those recommendations have been implemented, gradually. We now have a professional, experienced finance director / town accountant. We have a professional, experienced treasurer. We have our new accounting software, which seems to be somewhat problematic, but it is certainly better than the way we were doing things before. And maybe part of that is growing pains, and maybe part of it is that it isn't the right software, and that might be something we have to look at going down the road. But yes, we are definitely on a better footing. Is that due to any one person, or did it only happen because these specific people were in the positions that they're in? I think not. I think that the plan was there, and as long as it was followed, we were going to end up coming down. The change took us a lot of years to get where we were, and it's going to take us a lot of years to get out of it, but we're well on the way to getting out of it. Steve Lombard did a lot of work in bringing in people and getting the books reconciled and everything up to date through fiscal 12 when Eric Hinshoff left. So the new people coming in, certainly they didn't come into an ideal situation, but it's a lot better than it was the year before, and it
was heading in the right direction.
It was heading in the right direction.
If and you give Mike Coughlin some credit for that too. Is that fair to say or not?
I do. I mean, I recently had an opportunity to look back. He had given out a goal. What did he call it? Goals and objectives. And so I was just refreshing my memory on it because I was looking, and it's very interesting because his goals and objectives reflected items that Steve Lombard had recommended that were directly out of the audit and the experience that we had. So it was sort of like, coming down. So the things that are happening today are very much the same things that were being proposed at that time.
If you had the ability to do it on your own, Mike Coughlin wants to come back, at least in his lawsuit he says he wants to come back. Would you put him back in? Or is
I'm a
that
little
ship
uncomfortable speaking about that because it's something that's being, settled in the courts right now. But going back to my reason for running is to restore our town government back on a positive path. I don't know that bringing back anyone or any issue that was divisive and was not healthy for the town would be a good thing.
Well, on that theme then, I mean, what happens when do people ask you and say, okay, well, you were on the board, you were up for election, you were defeated. What message does that send? And then, why would you come back? Why do you think you lost that election and didn't get put in place again, reelected? And what's different now that you think that maybe things will change and you have a chance to get back on?
I think there were a number of reasons I didn't get elected last time. Certainly main among them is that whenever you're in a position where you have to make decisions, when you make a decision, half of the people are going to agree with you and half of the people aren't going to agree with you. What happened at the election is the people who didn't agree with me came out in a larger number than the people that did agree with me. But there's always great emphasis. It's interesting, Pat, because a lot of people, do say to me, a lot of people didn't vote for you and they're not going to vote for you again. And I'm like, well, there were a lot of people who did vote for me. And there are a lot more people today who have been looking at our town government and share the disappointment and the dismay that I have and want to see this positive change come about, what I'm, kind of calling a return to reason, where, we can have a culture where reasonable people disagree but can still come to reasonable solutions to problems, where we have mutual respect.
How are you going to vote on Article 8 at town meeting?
You know what, I haven't seen the warrant. I don't know what Article 8 is.
All right, let me tell you. It's something, an article you may have heard something about around town. It's to amend the Town Manager Act.
Interestingly enough, I'm having coffee with Christine Cunning tomorrow morning so that she can share some of the committees, how they got to the point where they are, why they made the decisions that they made, and I'm going to go and listen to her with an open mind.
And she's on the Town Governance Committee.
She is the chair of the Town Governance Committee, yes, thank you, Mark.
Came up with this, yes.
That having been said, I am on record, so we're not breaking news here. There are some things that are deal breakers for me. I don't believe that, or I do believe that there should be qualifications for the town manager.
Which are in place currently.
They're very broad, but it's been taken out. I don't agree with, I think that there was a reason, and the people who actually wrote I hate that word actually, I'm sorry, that wrote the Town Manager Act put in the clause about people being separated from government for 15 months for a reason, and that was to make sure that a small group of people couldn't just do a revolving door and control our town government. And having been out of office for 2 years now, I can tell you that that's a good clause to have in there, because my perspective what is the political word today? I've evolved. And that, I've been on the sidelines. I've been watching what's going on. I have more objectivity in my perspective. I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of people. More importantly, I've had the opportunity to listen to a lot of people. And so I think that for a lot of reasons, not just to prevent a small group from controlling town government, but also to allow people to decompress and to step back and have a more objective perspective on town government. I'm sure there are other things in there that I'm not happy with, but
those, if that's in there, which it is, you could not support the article.
I find it quite amusing that the governance committee, many of the selectmen, and a lot of people on town government are saying that we shouldn't require any qualifications for the town manager, and yet the town manager himself is proposing an assistant town manager, which will be required to have a master's degree. It just
So
doesn't
the assistant should have some
qualifications,
maybe,
but the town
not.
manager doesn't have to have qualifications.
Right, right. So how much do you think the vote on Article 8 and the selectmen's race will be a referendum on Mike Malinowski?
I think it'll be a referendum on town government, on the way the leaders and the town manager have taken the town. We're a small town. We all know one another, and I'm uncomfortable in calling it a referendum on individuals, but rather a referendum on the direction and the actions that have been taken in town government.
And Mike's just a part of that.
He's a part of
along
that.
with
It's
the
not.
selectmen and
Yeah, I mean,
others.
you can't just blame one person when there are 5 people who he works for who have sat there and voted yes pretty much until Mrs. Yesterby got on to everything that he wanted to do. So I think it's just a referendum. I think people want a return to a reasonable town government where we can have respect for each other, respect for the law, and move forward in a positive track. We still have a lot of challenges, and all this negativity, this turmoil and litigation is just draining our resources in a very negative way.
So Mike, when we interviewed him, indicated that, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that he's at least seriously considering not seeking to come back after the end of December, regardless of how the vote goes. Do you think that if people felt that he truly did not want to come back, that would make any difference on this potential warrant warrant article, or do you think that people are truly looking at the bigger picture with the proposed
I think people are
changes?
looking at the bigger picture. I think that, again, that we've seen over the past 2 years what can happen, and people want to make sure that when we do, does the Town Manager Act need to be revised? It probably does. But again, using Al Moore's phrase, it's not ready for prime time. There are too many things in there that need to be revised. I'm uncomfortable with the fact that they're going to revise the Town Manager Act with some things in it that affect our town bylaws, and therefore the town bylaws will have to be changed. What happens if town meeting decides they don't want to change the bylaw? Then the town we have all things. It's not fully thought out. It's being rushed through because people have some sense of urgency for some.
Well, it's because of Mike, isn't it? I mean, isn't that the sense of urgency that's driving this?
It would seem to be.
All right, Karen, so obviously there's a lot of other issues and things going on in the town about doing the town's business. What things do you see, if you got on board, that you'd want to address and change or highlight or make better? Aside from the rancor and this, what do you think needs to be done in Cohasset that you would be...
Well, I think we still have a lot of challenges with the financial situation and the staffing, the job descriptions and so forth. That, although it is less of an urgency, it is still a priority and needs to be attended. The solutions that have been put in place, the track that we've been taken on, needs to be continued. We need to continue to address all our unfounded liabilities, although we're not alone in that. Every town, municipality, state, and the federal government is in the same boat that we are in, but it can't be ignored, and we do have to continue to deal with it. We need to resolve the issue of how our police and fire are going to be structured. What is going to happen in there? I think that it's important also, when I was chair, I had reached out to members on the school committee. I think it's very important for there to be open communication. There's definite separation of responsibilities and authorities, but we all live in the same town, And whether you're a senior or a parent of a school child, we should all care about everybody's issues. Speaking of seniors, we have the issue of the new senior center. The fact that that has been going on for 5 or 6 years now. I remember in the last race coming up when we had the opportunity to speak to the seniors, I said I'm appalled at the fact that the director of our elder affairs, her office is a closet. It isn't like it's a closet because it's small. It's a closet with a door off.
Right.
You know, this is unacceptable. We need to find a solution to that. I think with the economy the way it is and the federal and the state grants drying up, I think the schools are going to be facing challenges. One of the things that I felt very strongly about in the whole budgeting process was that not just for the schools but for the town office, but particularly for the schools, that their grant funding and their gifts should be included somehow, somewhere, because that's the true cost of running the school district. And at that point, it was a what if, but now we are at that point where all these funding opportunities and disposable cash that people might have, they might not be able to be as generous to the schools as they were in the past. We need to do something to make sure that we maintain the level of education that Cohasset is known for our children. And we have to do all this in a way that doesn't so burden the taxpayers that people who are longtime residents and, you know, no matter what age category they're in, aren't forced out of town. So it's a very challenging time. It's getting more challenging, and I really am looking forward to being a part of the solution. If you're not a part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So,
we talked a little about the town governance committee, and one of the things that when they first were set up that they were going to be looking at, but it seemed to have gotten sidetracked down on this town manager piece of it, is what boards should be elected and which boards should be appointed, and whether boards should be combined, and so forth. When you look at an elected water, an elected sewer, and separate water and sewer, to just use one example, perhaps the biggest one, are we doing it right now with the two separate elected boards? Should they be combined? Should they be appointed? What are your views on that?
well, here's an issue I really have evolved on. I was a proponent for, you know, combining the boards and making them appointed. Ray Kasparowicz, former sewer commissioner, explained to me very clearly why I was wrong, and I didn't hear him. It took seeing what happens, again, unintended consequences. What can happen when you have an inexperienced and unprofessional governance? So we have elected officials who take their jobs very seriously, and I think at least for this time they should be. I do believe very strongly, I never advocated for combining the enterprise funds. They have different ratepayers, they should never be combined. But I think that's where I've come to today. So I'm glad my article got defeated.
So talk to us about the environment. You're known, and you even said that's how you came on board town government. What are your concerns for what's going on with Cohasset's environment?
Down the harbor, for instance, are we okay down there, or should there be some actions taken?
Well, I think that, I mean, we're going back a lot of years when the Harbor Health Committee was at 2005, 6, something like that. And at that time, just the amount of fresh water that was going into the harbor was creating, was altering the environment and the, excuse me, the health of the harbor, so to speak. I think that continues on, but unless we were to change the way we manage our stormwater and our sewer plant, the discharge from the sewer plant, there's really not a whole lot that's going to be done about that, and I don't see that rising to the top of the issues. It's important to a lot of people. It's still important to me. I'm very heartened because way back at that time, the Harbor Health Committee was advocating for sewering of the lightkeeper's house. It was the only building in the area that wasn't sewered. And through the forums that Jack Buckley's group, CSCR, has been running over the past years, that issue has come up. I was honored to be on the panel last year when it came up, and Wayne Sawchek, who's chair of the Sewer Commission, stepped up to the plate, and that's going to happen now. So that's something good that's going to happen there.
Mm-hmm. Cat dam. Oh, I know. And I guess that's my question. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears and money spent over that battle. Is it really over? Was it a fight worth fighting, or what are your views on it? A lot of people feel that one of the groups there was directly responsible for your defeat and re-election, but putting that aside, is it over now? And looking back, what were the mistakes?
I think it was a battle worth fighting. I think it's always worth fighting for something that will improve the environment. What were the mistakes? There were so many things that happened. If you're asking me specifically, what do I think that I did wrong?
Sure.
I think I did the best I could. It wasn't just me, it was a group of about 18 people. We did everything democratically. It was not Karen Quigley making those decisions. It was, okay, this is this is what the next step would be, this is what we have to answer. The complaint was done by the group. Obviously, there were several people who, did the main part of it, but nothing was submitted without the whole group going forward. It's always worth fighting the fight that needs to be fought. You stake a position, you fight as hard as you can for it, you do the best that you can, and in the end you prevail or you don't prevail. We didn't prevail. My personal opinion is that the environment didn't prevail. I don't think anybody prevailed in it. But that having been said, again, going back to why am I running? I'm not running to bring back issues that are going to cause more discord, more turmoil, cost us more litigation.
The good fight has been fought.
The good fight has been fought.
Lost, move on.
Right. Move on. Maybe there'll be somebody else down the road that will take it up. Maybe the abutters will change. Maybe more abutters that will come in and will have a different perspective on it. Time has a way of taking care of things.
Karen, you've been, over the last couple of years, I think it's fair to say, very outspoken,
Mm-hmm.
very passionate
Mm-hmm.
on several issues about the town. You've been right out front as one of the chief opponents to the way the town has been managed and run. Do you see that as a problem for your campaign or a plus for your campaign?
It is what it is. It's what I did. I was not in office, but I do care very much about this town. And my personality is, again, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So when I see something, I'm going to speak out on it. And I believe that by speaking out on things, it educates the public. People are very busy in their lives, and they're not all town government wonks like we are. No, I don't mean to include you in that. I meant this side of the table.
Guilty.
But so it's helpful for people to know what's going on and to realize what is happening. Now, it is then up to individuals to decide, do I agree with this point of view or do I disagree with this point of view? But if they're presented with one point of view through the selectmen's meetings and the reportings of town government that happens in the Mariner newspaper, and so I chose to try to provide people with the alternative point of view and say, agree with me or disagree with me, but at least know what's going on.
And so you feel the passion that you have for the town and for doing things the way you feel is do. It sounds like you feel that's a plus. If that's what you want, as opposed to what's recently been referred to as the potted plant scenario. No one's ever accused you of being a potted plant.
Nobody will ever
Or a
accuse me of being a
wallflower.
potted plant. No,
Right,
no.
right.
And you know, I try to be civil. I'm sure I am very close to a line sometimes, but you know, if you don't put yourself out there and you don't speak what you believe to be the truth, and you don't try to awaken the public awareness, then you might as well not bother at all. And I'm just not that type of person. And I think I can make a difference. I know I can make a difference, and I work very hard. And as I said, I've learned a lot, and I've evolved on issues, and I've had a chance to get off my heels a bit and to have a more objective perspective on things. And I think that that's what the town needs going forward, to be very positive and to have, I was always a big proponent for discussion of issues. I think it's important for the selectmen play a very important role, and they have a great responsibility, not just to make decisions, but to say to the people, this is what we're talking about, this is why we're talking about it, and this is how we as 5 selectmen individually feel, and this is why we came to a collective decision on it, so that the people of the town understand why things are happening.
So just quickly, because we have to wrap, what would be your campaign slogan?
Return to reason.
Return to reason.
There you go. Karen, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you
and
very
sharing
much
your
for
views.
having me on.
And you'll join us for our debate a
I
little later on?
wouldn't miss it. I'll be there.
Excellent. All right. Okay, so that's candidate Karen Quigley. Be sure to join us as we interview all of the candidates for selectmen. And don't miss our big candidate debate, which will be filmed on the 25th of April and be running several times after that. But for now, I'm Mark DeGiacomo for Pat Martin and the entire crew here at our town. Good night.